Welcome to the Stronger Than Steel podcast with your host, Austin Davidson and John Keir, talking Steelers all the time. Now, here's Austin and John.
Hello and welcome back to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. My name is John Keir, and joining me as always is my co-host, Austin Davidson.
Yo.
It is Season 4, Episode 51. We are heading into Week 15 of the NFL season, Austin, and the Pittsburgh Steelers and Buffalo Bills are set to clash in a very important matchup in the AFC playoff picture. The Bills currently holding on to the number 5 seed in the AFC playoffs. The Steelers holding the number 6 seed, and the number 5 seed will go to the winner of this game. Not officially, obviously, there's still more that needs to be determined, but the Bills can clinch a playoff spot with the win, and the Steelers can be put in the driver's seat of the number 5 seed with the victory. The loser of this game has a lot more to worry about, the Steelers in particular, going forward. So it's a huge game on Sunday night, and just a few days away. How are you feeling so far?
I feel okay. You know what I do feel, though? I don't know what's exactly going to happen, but I feel like if the Steelers win this game, I feel like the Steelers can beat anybody fully healthy. If the Steelers are able to win this game, which we're going to get to the injury report in a second, without their starting running back, possibly starting wide receiver, and starting tight end, if this team is healthy, there's literally no one they can't beat. And that's not me saying they're going to the Super Bowl. They could lose in some stupid way. But to me, there's no team in the league that I would say that they could definitely lose to. Because if they could win with all these going against them, I think they could win any game.
They can play with everybody is kind of what you're getting at.
Exactly. Better way to say it.
This is obviously going to be a huge test. Both teams having really good seasons. It's been a while since both the Bills and Steelers have played a competitive game against each other, but, here we are. And for the Bills at 9-4, there's a handful of injuries for them. Did you want to tackle that, Austin?
Sure. Ty Nsekhe with an ankle injury is out. Offensive guard John Feliciano is questionable with an illness. He did not participate on Friday. Corey Leggett with a knee injury is questionable. He did not participate on Wednesday and Thursday and was a limited participant on Friday. Then some other guys that just showed up on the injury report. Jordan Phillips hurt his knee in practice on Thursday. That would have been significant because he leads the Bills in sacks with 7.5, but he returned to full Friday and does not have a designation. Frank Gore was held out of practice Thursday with an illness, but returned to full on Friday and also does not have a designation. And then Lorenzo Alexander and Jerry Hughes were given rest days for the Bills. Then going over to the Steelers, Juju Smith-Schuster is out after re-aggravating the knee injury. There was early optimism that he would play going into the week, but he re-aggravated on Thursday, was a limited participant that day, and then returned to did not participate, and he is out for the game. James Conner is questionable after participating in full all week with his shoulder injury. Sounds like he will make his return, though, going into this game. It might still be thrown up in the air, but I think that he's going to lean towards playing this game. And then Vance McDonald is out with a concussion. He has not yet cleared the protocol. There's a chance that he clears on Saturday, but it's very slim. He did not participate in practice on Friday, so that's not a very good sign. So for the Steelers, the non-injury-related designation guys, David DeCastro, Big Al, Marquise Pouncey, Mark Barron, and Ramon Foster were all given days off at one point this week. So that wraps up the injury report.
Okay, well, the Steelers and Bills have had a somewhat long history. They've only been playing each other since 1970. That's when the AFL merged with the NFL, and the Steelers hold a 16-9 advantage, including wins in 6 straight games. The last win by the Bills came in the 1999 season. So the Bills haven't won back-to-back games against the Steelers since 1993, so it has been a long time since the Bills have been able to beat the Steelers consecutively. The Steelers hold a 2-1 record in the postseason. And actually, a fun fact, I was actually just, the last time these two teams played was in week, I want to say 14 of the 2016 season, a game that we were at Ralph Wilson Stadium at the time. And that was the game where Le'Veon Bell set a Steelers record for rushing yards in a game with 236 and had 297 scrimmage yards from that game. I believe that was also a team record, so that was a very nice game. It was snowy. And the other fact that I was actually just thinking about, just looking at the numbers here, the last, let's see, I want to say the last 6 games between the Bills and Steelers, the Bills have had a different starting quarterback.
I could believe that. I mean, what?
Yep. Okay. So it was Tyrod Taylor in 2016. It was E.J. Manuel in 2013. Ryan Fitzpatrick in 2010. It was probably Trent Edwards in 2007 or J.P. Lossman. Let me confirm that for you right now. Okay, let me confirm that for you right. It was J.P. Lossman, yes. And then 2000 that would have been the 2004 season. That would have been Drew Bledsoe, and then 2001 it was Rob Johnson. So yeah, and Josh Allen will make it number 7. So the Bills, no surprise, have had a lot of different quarterbacks in their recent, 15 to 20 year stretch where they've really struggled to make the playoffs.
That's pretty tough. I mean, it's why they've struggled so much. Quarterback is obviously the most important position in football, and if you're not being consistent there, you're probably not doing good. And with the Bills' case, they were kept out of the playoffs for quite a while.
And it was actually the longest streak in the NFL for a handful of years. They were the last team to make the playoffs following the turn of the millennium. They made it in just 2 years ago, but now they have a chance to make the playoffs for the second time in 3 seasons. And like the Steelers, the Bills are built on defense. And I talked to my friend Justin Maybach, who has been following the Bills for a long time, and I wanted him to focus on a few pieces on the defense. And one guy that I in particular was interested in was defensive back Tre'davious White, who I looked at closely coming out in the draft a few years ago. And I wanted Justin to answer for me if he is the shutdown cornerback I always thought that he could be. And this is what Justin had to say.
I think that he's definitely becoming one of the best corners, if not the best corner, in the National Football League. And a common theme that the Bills have had with this season with Tre'davious White is they've had him travel with multiple big-name wide receivers, usually the top wide receiver on other teams. He did it with the Browns with Odell Beckham Jr. He did it with the Broncos with Courtland Sutton. Now, my question is, will he be doing that on Sunday night with Juju Smith-Schuster just returning to the lineup after his knee injury and concussion? Or is he going to focus on Jake Washington or Deontay Johnson? And maybe they have Levi Wallace covering Smith-Schuster. It's going to be an interesting matchup one-on-one wherever he's put.
So, obviously, this was before it was apparent that Juju Smith-Schuster was not going to play in the game. But that being said, Justin made it clear that Tre'davious White is viewed in Buffalo as a top cornerback, and he travels with the opposing team's best wide receiver. So with Smith-Schuster out of the game, how do you think that plays into the Bills' hands, or who do you think he's going to be matched up with now?
I think Deontay Johnson. We saw Patrick Peterson kind of follow Deontay Johnson around last game, so I think that would make sense that you put Tre'davious White on him, and especially after he had a bigger game. But it kind of doesn't feel like there is a right answer, because it feels like James Washington and Deontay Johnson both had their moments so far in like the past 3 games without Juju Smith-Schuster. So I feel like the answer is Johnson, but I feel like I feel like he might move around, because the Steelers don't really have a true number 1 receiver like in other teams. Like we don't have the Antonio Brown anymore, the Odell Beckham, the DeAndre Hopkins. There's not that guy that needs to be always locked down, always double covered or something like that. So honestly, I think Tre'davious White is just going to play around. He's not going to just follow around a wide receiver. I think he's just going to be used in whatever packages the Bills defense think is best to guard against the offense.
I gotta be honest, I'm pretty concerned about Tre'davious White. If you look at just the raw numbers, he makes plays on the ball. He has 4 interceptions and, count them, 15 passes defense this year. So I don't know how you feel about it, but I have a feeling that the Steelers aren't going to be testing him all that often.
I don't think so either. I think the Steelers are going to be throwing to around the ball other places. Maybe they'll look for Vanette to step up. Maybe they'll look for this is the hard part. Like, what wide receiver is he going to be on? Is he just going to be following around Johnson because Johnson had a big game? Or is he going to be moving around because the Steelers don't really have a true number 1 wide receiver? it's really whoever Tre'davious White is not covering, that's going to be the guy that Steelers probably use, and that's probably going to be Nick Vannett.
I wonder if they are going to have White just stay on one side. That wouldn't seem like something that they would do, but maybe they don't feel like they need to have him travel with anybody in this game.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think that they're in particular. I mean, I love Deontay Johnson, and this isn't me pooping on what he's done or anything, but him and James Washington aren't like the elite wide receivers like Devontae Adams and all of that. So I just don't feel like it's the same. Like Tre'davious, I feel like he has no reason to follow around a wide receiver.
And speaking furthermore about the Bills' defense, it has been an elite unit this year. They're a top 10 unit in terms of sacks, and they're top 5 in passing yards, and points per game. They're second in the NFL in points per game allowed. And you look at this Bills unit top to bottom on defense, and we just talked about Tre'davious White, who's been a key part of that secondary. Do you see much of a weakness right now? Because it looks like the passing game is definitely the Bills' strength.
Yeah, I don't really see a major weakness with them. They're overall a really good unit. I mean, I would have to say there really isn't a weak part of it. I mean, their worst part of their defense is their rushing game, and they're still ranked 14th, which, I mean, I guess it's just above the top. It's just above average for the league or halfway. So I guess that isn't that great, but I don't know. They play really well. The only time I've seen them exposed this year is against the run, so I guess that's where you have to attack it. But in the passing game, there's just I don't really like it. I like a lot of their team. I like Jordan Poyer. I like Micah Hyde. I like Tre'davious White there. They got a lot of good players there, and I like their defensive line. I mean, I still feel like the Steelers' offensive line should win against that, but I just don't. I want the Steelers to be able to establish a run game in this game is what I'm trying to say.
It feels like they're going to have to if they want to be able to move the ball in this game.
And having James Conner back for this should be good if he is playing.
And, let's just say that he is. Do you think that we're going to see a nice mix-up of snaps between him and Benny Snell and with a little Jalen Samuels and Kerrith White sprinkled in here and there?
I think that the Steelers are about to embrace the committee for real once Conner comes back. I'm pretty sure they're going to have their fair share of switching and moving and all that. And we might even see the pony package with 2 running backs, I think. I think that's possible now because, I mean, now you have your number one wide receiver, number one running back, and you might want to get Jalen Samuels out there as your best pass-catching running back. And then maybe you want to switch to Kerrith White for a change of pace and Benny Snell on short yardage. I feel like everything's going to be about really flipped upside down when James Conner gets back.
It would be nice to see because the backs do bring different things to the table. And with James Conner's status is, being what it is, I really don't want to see him thrust into more touches than he really needs to have.
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, the Steelers should learn this week that they probably rushed Smith-Schuster back a little bit too quick. I mean, he was full on Wednesday, but they probably should have done it. Have him not participate on Wednesday, not participate on Thursday, and then see if he could go on Friday instead. And that didn't work out in their favor, being full all week. It's just if he takes another bad hit, it might be done for the season. He was really close to surgery from what we've seen. So it wouldn't be ideal to rush him back with a lot of snaps right now if he does play.
We haven't really seen a by-committee approach for the Steelers since 2012 when they were missing Rashard Mendenhall for most of the season. But with Kerrith White in the backfield, he really provides a nice spark that I haven't seen from a Steelers running back in a while. He can make something out of nothing in terms of, there's not a big gap, but he can shoot through it and turn a loss of 2 into a 9-yard gain.
Yeah, he gets skinny. He's pretty elusive, and he's been a great change of pace back. And I'll keep saying it. It's something the Steelers haven't had in a while. It's just a pure speed back, a guy that can run really nice and is elusive. The Steelers have had that elusive part in running backs, but not combined with the speed. It's always been patient elusiveness that the Steelers have had, and he definitely brings up a change of pace that I like, and I hope he doesn't get put on the back burner in this game, even if James Conner returns. I want to see him play at least a handful of snaps.
So let's say you have Connor, Snell, Samuels, you have White, and you have Edmonds. That's 5 running backs. Do you think one of those guys ends up being inactive?
Oh, it's going to be tough. I think that Trey Edmonds ends up being inactive for this game because I feel like despite it, but that's
I don't
hard.
see that because
Him and Gareth White both play special teams.
Yeah, they're important there.
Like I'm thinking Trey Edmonds actually has the most special teams value because Gareth White might play special teams, but they play different parts of special teams. Gareth White isn't good at his. He does the returning, while Trey Edmonds is on the coverage team. So I don't know. Jalen Samuels does it too, though. I'm gonna stick with Trey Edmonds. That's my final answer.
I feel like we could see a surprise where it's like Jalen Samuels doesn't get a helmet this week. I don't know though.
Possibility. I just think that he's your best pass catching back, so I wouldn't be comfortable with that. And then he led the charge on Johnson's punt return touchdown last week. Not that one play defines your entire how well you do on special teams, but I know he can do it.
Also, one thing to note is that Trey Edmonds has been the fullback in goal line situations. I'm not saying that's going to give him a helmet, but that's just something else to tick in his favor, I suppose.
Yeah.
And where else? So establishing a ground game is going to be very important for the Steelers, and luckily they've done that the last 3 weeks. They've been able to get at least a somewhat effective ground game going in the last 3 games, mostly from Benny Snell, but Gareth White actually led the team in rushing this week. And, against a Bills team that has a very good defense, it's going to take plays like that. And then as far as the passing game goes, the Bills are a good team when it comes to generating pressure, not a great team, and they have those great defensive numbers overall. So what it's telling me is 2 things, Austin. Number one, this is, I don't know how many times we have to say this, but you can't turn the football over. You can't do it, especially against a Bills defense that doesn't give up a lot of yardage. And then number 2, you have to be able to bury drives when you get short fields, whether it's set up from punt returns or whether you get an explosive play or 2, or you get penalties. You have to be able to get 7 in this game. So above and beyond, first and foremost, you need to cut down on turnovers. I really don't want to see any in this game, but I'll set it at 1 as being the acceptable number. But anything more than that, and I'd be really concerned about the outcome of this game. And then beyond that, the other thing I'd be looking for is to make sure that when you are in position to score, you end those drives in 6 points or 7 or 8 instead of 3.
Yeah, you got to be able to score on your opportunities, like you said. It's just and it's going to be tough. The defense has shown to be really good against teams that aren't prone to turnovers. We saw it last week against Arizona, where they only had 12 turnovers coming in, and now we're coming against the Bills, who have 14 turnovers coming in. So that's not a lot either, and it's that surprised me. I felt like Josh Allen's his thing, his stigma was that he turns over the ball a lot, he fumbles a lot, or he throws a lot of picks. So that was a lot lower than I was expecting when I saw that. But when the defense gives it to you, the Steelers have got to be opportunistic on offense. They got to be able to turn that into something. And like you said, special teams, if there is a return that is serviceable, if that's even something I can say, you got to be able to capitalize on that, because the Bills aren't going to give you much yards on defense. You got to be when they're on defense. You got to be able to take good starting field position and turn it into points.
And part of the reason that the offense struggled early, Austin, I don't know if you know this, but I think Justin said 9 of the 11 starters on offense this year were different than the 11 starters from last season on offense. So Sean McDermott's unit underwent a complete overhaul, and early on in the season, we saw offensive outputs from the Bills of 17, 28, 21, 10, 14, all from the first 5 weeks of the Bills season. Only 2 of those are really considered good when you get 28 and 21. The rest of them would be subpar. So when you have that many new offensive pieces, it's kind of understandable why you struggle so much. And remember, of the 14 turnovers, 4 of them came in that first New England game. So the Bills really have been specializing on offense on managing the game, and that's what Josh Allen has become, is a great game manager that can hurt you with his legs. And I don't mean that to be disrespectful, but he hasn't been losing games for the Bills lately. And, it's been a welcome sign of maturation from last year, where he was kind of just a gunslinger. Not that he was, awful, but I think he's grown significantly in his second year. How much further can he grow? Time will tell. But starting with the Bills' offense, anyways, part of the reason for the struggle is the fact that they have undergone so much change on offense. And it starts up front with center Mitch Morse, but they also got guys like John Feliciano, and they drafted a guy like Cody Ford. And elsewhere, you've got the running back core of Frank Gore and Devin Singletary. And then on the outside, you have wide receivers John Brown and Cole Beasley, and of course the emerging tight end Dawson Knox and Tyler Kroft. So, you look at every unit on this offense, and there's change compared to last season. And I don't know which of these guys on offense intrigue you the most, but I think the wide receivers are interesting if you want to start there. They're not individually fantastic, but they've been working well as a group this year.
To answer your question first, the one that intrigues me the most is Devin Singletary. But to go into I had to say that, but wide receivers, John Brown's underrated. I think the streak broke, but I remember going into week 7, there was only 2 wide receivers that had 50-plus yard receiving in every game they played, and John Brown and Michael Thomas were the only 2, and he was underrated. He always had 50 yards. I don't know if that broke. I don't know how long that actually went to.
That streak is over. I think it ended like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, but he's still pretty dangerous, and instead of that, what I noticed is Cole Beasley has started to come of his own. He's starting to play better. I'm starting to see a lot more of him getting catches and stuff. The reason I even know this is because I was just looking at fantasy, just getting ready for the second round of playoffs, and I was looking at pick him up, and I was like, wow, his numbers have gotten better. And then I started watching some Bills highlights, and I was like, he's actually doing a little bit better from the beginning of the year. I was kind of surprised, because I knew he wasn't really as well used as he was in Dallas, at least in the beginning, but him and Josh Allen are starting to get a rep. They're starting to get chemistry going. So he's actually probably the more dangerous one now, but still, both those wide receivers are interesting and can hurt you.
Do you think the Steelers are going to have bracket coverage on either of these guys, or who would concern you more? I guess it would probably be Beasley with the way he's played lately. Beasley is trending up, yeah, while Brown is trending down. But not that Brown should be disrespected. Brown's a speedster, so you could still get burnt. We saw a few miscommunications in the Browns game and stuff. So he can be concerning, but I am more concerned for Cole Beasley because of his streak. So as of late. Justin talked to me about how Josh Allen's deep ball has actually been kind of off this year. You remember him coming out of Wyoming. We all knew that he had that cannon arm, and he can fire fastballs for sure. But Justin noted that Allen has really struggled with his deep ball accuracy this year. He's only completed a handful of deep passes down the field. And, that's kind of, you would think that with a guy like John Brown, who's traditionally been a deep threat kind of guy, that wouldn't mean good things for his numbers, but he's still been producing. So that being the case, I still think I'd agree with you that Cole Beasley is the more interesting weapon to pay attention to. But overall, all the things about Josh Allen, you think about him with a big arm, and he does have it, but he has been throwing the ball with more effectiveness shorter than he has been deeper down the field. I don't know if you knew that.
Sorry, say the last part one more time.
I was going to say I wasn't sure if you were aware that the Bills had more success with their shorter passing game than their deeper passing game this season.
Actually didn't. I didn't know that Allen was playing mostly more dink and dunks, or more. I guess I could have probably inferred that with how the Bills' offense has kind of been not scoring that many points. But, that is kind of interesting with how he came out of college, like you said.
And Justin doesn't seem to think that it's anything that's going to be fixed this year. So if I'm Keith Butler on the defensive side, at least when it comes to the receivers, I don't mind necessarily playing aggressive, playing press man every now and then, and trying to make them beat you over the top. Because although John Brown is experienced in doing that, their lack of success in terms of deep completions this year, I'd be willing to take some chances in this game. I'd be willing to, the Steelers haven't blitzed a lot this year, but if you watched last week's game against the Ravens for Buffalo, Baltimore blitzed the heck out of Josh Allen. And remember, we were talking about it. They sacked him, I think, 5 or 6 times and hit him like 12 other times. I know the Steelers haven't blitzed a lot this year, but I'd consider doing it in this game.
I think so too. I think you trust your corners and just send an extra man and just I think that would be a smart thing to do. I do like the idea. I mean, we saw that the Ravens did it successfully. So, and the Ravens' pass rush isn't as good as the Steelers. So, I wouldn't be opposed to it either.
And there's one other element that we haven't touched on yet, and it's probably the most notable thing nationwide about Josh Allen, and that is his ability to run. He is probably the most underrated running quarterback in the NFL. You've got the speedsters like Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray. Josh Allen has been just as effective. He leads the team in rushing touchdowns right now, and this would be the second straight year that he would have done so. He is still very dangerous back there, and he's an athlete, that's for sure. The Steelers can't fall asleep on him.
He likes to sit and wait for his opportunity as well. It's kind of a double-edged sword, but he waits over 3 seconds to throw, which is like the worst in the NFL. He waits the longest, and he'll hold on to the ball. So he waits for like run lanes to develop. He doesn't see something downfield. He sees something in front of him open up, and he goes. So I don't know if it's going to work against the Steelers, holding onto the ball for that long against the fastest, I believe the second fastest pressure rate, in the NFL. Might not be the best idea in the world. So I actually feel good about this week. It's also how they played last week against Kyler Murray. So I feel good in that regard. I think that the Steelers are going to be able to shut down Josh Allen from running.
It certainly does help when you have played guys like Kyler Murray and a Lamar Jackson earlier in the year to at least help you with what it's like to play a mobile quarterback, even though Josh Allen's mobility is used differently from that of a Murray or Jackson, right?
Oh, yeah, it's a little bit different. He's not as fast.
I feel like the Bills' offensive line is hit and miss. Some weeks I feel like they're really good. There are other times, like last week, I feel like they just haven't been great.
Yeah, they're literally like that. They're middle of the pack. They've given up 34 sacks on the year. It's hard to say. I feel like because of the thing I just mentioned, that Allen waits the longest to throw out of any starting quarterback in the NFL, like waiting over 3 seconds, I think that the offensive line is going to have a rough time. And that is hard. If you're an offensive line and your quarterback is the slowest to throw in the NFL, it's going to make your stats worse. So they do have a tough job, and being middle of the pack, I think, is actually decent for them. But I think the Steelers pass rush is going to win. I mean, Cody Ford against T.J. Watt, that's a matchup that I'll take any day. I think that sounds good. Bud Dupree on the other side has a little bit tougher, and down the middle you have some good players, so that's going to be a little bit tougher as well. But I still think with how long that Josh Allen waits to throw, the Steelers pass rush is going to hit home. And I'd say probably 5 is my number. I think that they should hit him as much, if not more, than as much as the Ravens did.
And now let's get, of course, to probably the most important player on the Bills' offense, and that is Devin Singletary. We were talking a little bit beforehand, Justin and I, about him. And I think you had mentioned this to me first, so I echoed the sentiments to Justin. But I think going into next year, he might be viewed as one of the top running backs in the league. He's certainly played like that when he's gotten the opportunity to this year.
So good. I can't believe how good that guy is. I thought he was going to be good. I didn't look at him pre-draft, but I was a fan of his. I saw his workout and stuff, and I was like, I like this guy. I think he's going to be good. And he turned out to be great. I kind of questioned the Bills making that choice out of all the teams because they seemed like the least running back needy team I've ever seen. But, I mean, for a third-round pick and what they got, it was an amazing choice. I mean, again, other teams would have probably been more better off to take a running back than the Bills. But, I mean, when you get a player like that that's contributing like he is, and he's going to be, like you said, he's going to be known as a top running back by the end of next season, if not like the beginning of next season. Because when Frank Gore retires, I think I'm projecting after this year, he can be a guy that runs the offense by himself. He can be the one running back system that, I mean, it's kind of fading away, and I'm sure the Bills won't ever do that anyway, since they kind of like using multiple running backs. But like he could be the guy. He could be the Christian McCaffrey, the Alvin Kamara, the like these guys, like the one running back one, and he's great. And it literally off topic for a second, but he's going to be my keeper next year, going for fantasy. I'm keeping him because I got him drafted so late.
Is Devin related to Mike Singletary?
Don't actually know. I'm not actually certain.
I'm actually kind of curious about that. Like, I wasn't even thinking about that. He is only 5'7", so I wonder if there are going to be questions about his longevity. But then again, that's always kind of the thing about running backs anyways. But he already has in, excuse me, he already has in 10 games, he has over 800 scrimmage yards. So that's pretty impressive.
That's pretty great. He's done really well. It's like I don't have his yards per carry offhand, but his yards per carry is ridiculous.
Over 5.5.
Yeah, and he's rushed so many times this year. Like, I mean, he hasn't gotten a full workload because he was injured and because Frank Gore was like the starter in the beginning of the year. But still.
The Bills really didn't start using him more until he came back from injury after the Eagles loss. So the first game where he really saw an uptick in usage was actually a game I was at in Week 9 when they played the Redskins. He had 20 carries in that game for 95 yards, and since then he's had double-digit carries, not touches, but carries in all but one of the games since then. The only game where he had fewer than 10 carries was that game against the Browns, which the Bills conversely lost, but he also caught 3 passes in that game too.
Man, he still contributes, and he's their best pass catching back as well, which makes him all the more useful.
Any concern with Frank Gore? I mean, he is the ageless wonder.
He's just it's not like that I don't respect him, but like it's just that Singletary is that guy. Singletary is the guy you gotta respect in my eyes. Like you gotta watch out for him. I don't think Frank Gore. I say this now and like watch Frank Gore get like a 60-yard touchdown, but Frank Gore's not going to be the one to like bust off a huge run like that. I don't think against the Steelers anyway.
Yeah, he's been more of at least the short yardage guy this year. So, I guess time will tell. But it looks like the offense runs through Singletary. But overall, you feel pretty good about the Steelers' defense in this game. I still think that magic number right around 17. I think, again, the 4 sacks and 2 turnovers, I think, is the key. If you can, I think, 17, 4, and 2, however you want to order those numbers with sacks, turnovers, and points against. I think those are the magic numbers, right?
I think that sounds like a good number. I'd actually set the sacks probably a little bit higher than 4, though. I'd still go to 5. I think that's the – it's only one more, but I think that's the number.
All right, and then on the other side, we didn't get to talk a ton about anyone else besides Tre'davious White, but of course they have a couple of talented but quiet safeties in Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde. There's, of course, one of the brothers of the Edmonds. It's Tremaine Edmonds, the youngest of the trio. In Tremaine, he's been very good. And you've got a talented group up front with Jordan Phillips, Star Lutulele, and Jerry Hughes. We talked about White, but who else do you want to talk about right now? I mean, where do you want to shine the light on?
Well, I like Hughes, not Hughes. I'm sorry. Why is his name skipping me? Jordan Phillips. Jordan Phillips leads the Bills in sacks at 7.5. So I think he is the most dangerous, other than Tre'davious White. I think that the Steelers are going to need to pay him the most attention when it comes to blocking. Have running backs helped with him down the middle in blocking, because the other guys I respect. I just that Jordan Phillips is like the best they got. You know what I'm saying? I think that he's the other guy that I'm watching out for this game. Jordan Phillips, him, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer. Those are my 4 that I'm specifically watching out for.
What about Ed Oliver? He started the season slowly, but has had 5 sacks in his last 8 games.
And he might be coming on as well. Honestly, I hadn't heard much about him anytime recently. I honestly even forgot that he played for the Bills, if I'm being honest with you. That's pretty bad. I just straight up just wasn't thinking about it. But, yeah, he could come on into this game as well. I didn't know that he actually had 5 sacks in the last 8 games. It's pretty good.
Yeah, he didn't have any in the first 5 games of the year, but since then has been much more impactful. He actually had 2 on Thanksgiving against the Cowboys.
Actually, what? I'm sorry.
He actually had 2 against the Cowboys.
Oh, cool. That's a really good offensive line, too. So maybe he is someone to watch out for.
So again, there's playmakers everywhere on this Buffalo Bills defense. Justin said that a potential weakness might be your guy in Levi Wallace, and whether it's Deontay Johnson or whether it's Nick Vannett or not Nick Vannett, James Washington, but maybe you're hoping for a guy like Nick Vannett to make a few plays. I don't know. When it comes to this offense, I think you look at, like we said, establishing a ground game, and then you have to hope that you can hit on a few explosive plays. I think the Steelers are going to have a tough time moving the ball, particularly through the air. So it's going to make establishing the run very important, and of course converting on third down, because you're going to have to string together a couple of longer drives. Because unless if the Bills turn the ball over a handful of times, which they might, the Steelers have been able to do that to a lot of teams. I don't see how the Steelers are going to be able to have more than 2 long touchdown drives in this game.
Yeah, I'm not even sure the Steelers will be able to score a touchdown. It's going to be really rough. I mean, I really wish Juju Smith-Schuster was playing for this game. It's really a shame that Tre'davious White couldn't just be on Juju all game and leave Deontay Johnson, James Washington do their thing. Makes it really tough to get long drives from the offense in this game.
Any further thoughts? Steven Hauschka has been struggling this year. Their punter, Corey Bjorkwes, has been about league average. Hauschka has struggled this year. And in the return game, they have a former, I think he was a Pro Bowler, at least one of the better return men, Andre Roberts. He's been just okay this year.
Yeah, the Jets let him walk, and he was a Pro Bowl returner last year, and he's just been normal. Just been decent. Not like crazy like last year where it was really good, but still someone you have to watch out for.
And with that being said, I think we're good on the preview. Is there anything else you had in mind?
I think we're good.
Okay. Oh, just one thing to note. Kareth White was the backup to Devin Singletary. I don't know if you knew that, at Florida Atlantic.
I had no idea. That's actually kind of cool.
So they'll be coming back to meet for the first time since then, so just something interesting to note. All right, so let's get into Week 14's picks, and of course we both picked the Ravens on Thursday night, and they absolutely destroyed the New York Jets as we figured they would. Lamar Jackson with, 5 touchdowns, and the Ravens clinched the AFC North. So as far as things are going, you're hoping, if you're the Steelers now, you're probably hoping for the Ravens to win so that they can clinch home field advantage throughout the AFC playoffs, so that Week 17 game is not as meaningful to them as it would have been.
For sure. You're just kind of hoping that the Ravens win out here. I mean, and you got to hope for the Patriots and the Chiefs to just lose so that the Ravens can secure that number 1 seed and home field advantage throughout the entire playoffs before that Week 17 game, because they already said that if that happens, if they're able to secure it, they're going to be starting RG3 Week 17, which would definitely work out in the Steelers' favor. And not only would they be probably starting RG3, they probably sit down Mark Ingram. They probably sit down Marcus Peters and some other better players. Not all of them, obviously you can't, but they would probably take some of those players just so they don't get hurt.
All right, let's get into the early games, starting, of course, with an NFC North matchup. The Chicago Bears at 7-6, still keeping their playoff hopes alive against the 10-3 Green Bay Packers. Green Bay is getting 4.5 at home in Lambeau. Where are you leaning on this one, and why?
I'm going to lean on the Packers to cover. I know Trubisky's been doing a little bit better lately. I just can't trust it, though. I still think that Green Bay should have the advantage. The Bears are also the more injured team coming into this. They're going to be without Bobby Massey on offensive tackle. They're going to be without Danny Trevathan, their starting linebacker. They're going to be out with losing a tight end, and just the Packers only have 2 listed as questionable. So I think that the Packers are going to cover here.
I agree with you. Traditionally, Aaron Rodgers and the Packers have owned the Chicago Bears, and I have no reason to think that's going to change, even though the Bears have been playing better as of late. This game is in Lambeau. It's December. I've got a good feeling about the Packers, so lay the 4.5 for the Packers for me. And on to Cincinnati, as the New England Patriots are at 10-3, looking to win their 11th game of the season against the 1-12 Bengals. The Bengals are 9.5-point underdogs. I don't really see any reason to pick against the Patriots. The Bengals just are the worst team in the league, and even with the Patriots sporting practically no offense, the Steelers were able to go in there and win a game against the Bengals, and I think the Patriots are going to play a more complete game than the Steelers did a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Patriots are going to cover here. That spread is just too much to not pick that. I would bet on this game, though. I would bet on the over-under, though. The over-under is set at 41.5. I don't know if the Bengals score any points, and I don't think the Patriots' offense is good enough to score 42 by themselves. So I'd honestly, if I felt like it, this is a good game to bet on the over-under, picking the under.
Denver Broncos and Kansas City Chiefs. In Arrowhead, the Chiefs are getting 10.5 points. Broncos are they technically still alive? I think they were officially eliminated.
I think they have a 2% chance. I don't think they're officially eliminated just yet.
But they're at the very bottom of the barrel. But it's all about Drew Lock right now. Can he continue his success against the Chiefs, or are the Chiefs, whose defense has come alive the last few weeks, are they going to be able to put a whooping on the Broncos at home?
I'm going to pick the Broncos plus 10.5, with the wild card being the new quarterback in Drew Lock. He's played really well, and I think that he could keep it within 10.5. I don't think the Broncos are going to win, but I think that there's a pretty good chance that they stay within 10.5. What do you got?
I don't like your picks this week. I can't make up ground if I'm picking against you, or if I'm making all the same picks as you. So I have to pick the Chiefs in this one. But it's a divisional game. And I have a feeling Drew Lock is going to keep playing well. It's too early to tell if he is the answer, but so far so good for Drew Lock, and I have a feeling he's going to keep playing well. But I have to pick differently than you, so I'll take the Chiefs to cover that 10.5-point spread. On to Detroit, where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers meet the Detroit Lions. Tampa Bay is a 3.5-point road favorite in this one. The Lions seems headed straight for a top 5 draft pick. The Buccaneers, even though they've been eliminated, they've been competitive, but then again, it's always about which Jameis Winston you're going to get.
Yeah, I think I'm going to pick the Bucs to cover here. I think that the Bucs have been playing pretty decently over the past couple weeks. We saw they played against the Colts and stuff, so I'm going to pick them. Even though they're going to be without their starting offensive tackle, Donovan Smith, I still think they can do it. I'm going to pick the Bucs to cover the 3.5-point spread.
I agree with you. Even if Jameis Winston struggles in this one, I just think the Lions have kind of mailed it in here. It's they haven't won a game in a long time, so I think the Buccaneers will cruise in this one. Texans at Titans. This is a huge game between these two divisional foes that have not played yet this season, so they both play each other twice. If you're a Steelers fan, you're rooting for the Texans in this game and in the Week 17 game. The Titans are red hot with Ryan Tannehill and injured, but still going to play Derrick Henry. They're getting 2.5 at home, the Titans are. How you feel about this one?
I feel like the Titans are going to win, but I'm going to pick Texans plus 2.5 with just to keep rooting for the Texans. I don't think that's a smart choice. I actually had Tennessee originally covering, but I'm going to pick the Texans plus 2.5 and hope they win. So hope I'm wrong. What do you got?
I am going to go the other way, even though my heart doesn't want me to. I'll take the Titans to cover. There's nobody hotter in football than Ryan Tannehill right now, and Derrick Henry is playing like a madman. Although, to be honest with you, I do have a funny feeling in my gut that the Texans are going to turn it around and win this game. I don't really know why, but they have, like we were talking about, they remind us of the Steelers from a few years ago, where they have that talent, and if they all come together on the same day, they can't lose.
And they could still miss the playoffs at this point, so really Steelers-like.
Yeah, so they'd better hope that they get it together and quick. Two teams that have been out of the playoff picture for a while and are not going anywhere for the playoffs are the Dolphins and the Giants. Eli Manning getting his second straight start. This could be his final start in New York for the Giants, or in New Jersey, I should say. And, it could be a nice little farewell party for Eli Manning. That being said, the Giants are getting 3.5, which I thought was a lot for them. I I kind of thought that would be in favor of the Dolphins, but Vegas seems to like the Giants in this one.
Yeah, I'm also picking the Dolphins plus 3.5. I just think that the Dolphins have played better in the past couple of weeks, and the Giants haven't shown me anything. The Giants have been one of the worst teams, probably the second worst team in the league over the past 8 weeks. So I'm picking against them. I mean, especially when you don't have your best offensive weapon in Evan Ingram. You're out Evan Ingram, you're down your second tight end in Red Allison, you're down your starting offensive guard in Kevin Ziegler. And honestly, starting Eli Manning isn't the worst thing in the world to me, but you are starting Eli Manning. So I will pick the Dolphins to stay within 3.5, and I think they're going to win.
Yeah, but none of that matters because they have your boy Darius Slayton.
I do have my boy Darius Slayton, and that is all that matters.
I'll also take the Dolphins plus 3.5. NFC East showdown. The 3-10 Redskins are 5.5-point underdogs at home to the 6-7 Philadelphia Eagles, who I believe are starting. They're going to be starting Vince Papale from the movie Invincible at wide receiver because they're so mangled at that position. I mean, they had one healthy wide receiver at the end of last week's game. What are they going to do?
Incredible, dude. Incredible stuff. I don't know how they finished that game. I don't know how they won it even against the Giants. I mean, that's terrible on the Giants. I just can't believe they won with one healthy wide receiver.
I mean, I don't even know how you can run an off. I mean, you're signing guys. You have to sign all your practice squad receivers at this point, and then you have to sign other guys off the street and say, "We need help."
Please run straight and just hope to catch it. Just run it in a straight line. That's all we need you to do.
And what's concerning for them is there's no speed on the perimeter. I mean, Alshon Jeffrey is slow, and he was still one of their faster receivers, and now he's done for the year.
And that sucks. I mean, what's Alcohol up to? I mean, not catching balls, but what happened to him? I don't even know. Why is he not playing?
I thought he was hurt, but I'd still keep him on the bench. I'd rather have guys off the street than him. I hate that guy.
And yeah, he's questionable for the game. I just brought it up. I don't know what it doesn't say what the problem is, but he might be coming back for the game to give them
he's got
help
a case
in
of
quotation.
He's got a case of the Sammy Stone hands.
He is stone hands. He is and no effort either. But to go into the game, I'm picking the Redskins plus 5.5. Redskins have been playing better recently, actually. They played really close to the Packers. They beat the Panthers. And I think that they're playing okay. And as I did in week 1, never pick Philly against the Ravens. Never pick Philly against the Redskins. It's just I've learned this from my friend Mitch. He tells me the Eagles and Redskins always play close, no matter which team is the good one, or if one team is ridiculously good. And both these teams are ridiculously bad in my eyes right now. So I will happily take the Redskins plus 5.5.
I don't know what the over-under is, but I'd be willing to bet the under, too, because I don't see how either team is going to score a ton of points.
39.
It's 39? I'd take the under on that all day. I mean, watch me be wrong. But, yeah, I'll also take the Redskins plus the 5.5. I don't have any faith in the Eagles to be able to put up a ton of points right now simply because of how their wide receiver room looks right now. And then with the Redskins, they haven't been great, but they're showing a little progress, which is nice for them. Let's move on to... Was that a 4 o'clock game? No, this is the last 1 o'clock game. The Seahawks and the Panthers. I'm kind of shocked that the Seahawks are only getting 5.5. I know they've played a ton of close games this year, but the Panthers have absolutely mailed it in. So I'll take the Seahawks to cover easily.
I'm going to pick the Seahawks to cover too. It did seem like a kind of small spread. I don't really know what the thought process was. Maybe they thought Greg Olsen was going to play. I don't know. Maybe they had more hope for him playing. That doesn't tilt the needle that much for me anyway, even if he does. So I will take Seahawks to cover.
That would have been huge for my fantasy team because I have no tight ends to play in his place.
Oh, man.
And that, I should clarify, that's the one where there's no free agency or whatnot. But in any case, he's only caught 2 touchdowns this year, too, so he hasn't been a big-time player anyways.
Yeah.
Let's move into the 4 o'clock games. The Cleveland Browns are in Arizona taking on the Cardinals this week. The Browns are getting 2.5. The Browns won last week, but it felt like they lost. Again, more stuff going on in the locker room with Odell Beckham Jr. It's just a mess with them. It always is.
It is a mess, and I am still going to pick that mess to win. I have a good feeling about them in this game. I mean, I don't know. I kind of bounce back and forth with this one, but I think the Browns are going to cover. I think that they're going to beat Arizona.
I'm actually going to take the Cardinals plus the 2.5. This is a tough game on the West Coast. They gave the Steelers all that they could handle last week, and I don't know. I have a feeling that the dam's going to break for the Browns at some point soon here. Give me the Cardinals plus 2.5 to end the Browns' playoff hopes officially. Jaguars at Raiders, two teams that seemingly don't want to win a football game the last few weeks. The Raiders are getting a pretty large spread of 6.5.
Yeah, for me, that spread was a little bit too large. So I picked the Jaguars plus 6.5, even though they played terrible against the Chargers. I think that the Raiders have played so bad that the Jaguars can stay close in this, so I'm going to pick them plus the points.
Yeah, I don't really know what happened to the Raiders. It's like they just fell off the face of the earth.
Kansas City welcomed them back to the world.
Man, they have been a tough dose of reality for the Raiders this year, haven't they?
It has.
Let's see. This is actually the last game in Oakland ever. So I'm going to take the Raiders plus to cover that 6.5 point spread. I think they win in blowout fashion.
Fair.
I didn't even realize it. I was literally just looking at their schedule because I was like, I need a reason to pick the Raiders, and that was as good of a reason as I'm ever going to get.
I think that is actually a pretty good reason. I'm still going to stick where I'm at, but that is a pretty solid reason.
Vikings at Chargers. The Chargers are getting the Vikings are getting 2.5 points on the road. I'll give you this one. The Chargers in that building stink, and the Vikings are a team that seem destined for the playoffs, and even if not, they're just a better team. So give me the Vikings to cover easily.
I'm going to pick the Vikings to cover as well. I mean, the Chargers are the more healthy team. They only have one person on their injury report, and he's questionable. That's Uchenna Nwosu, the linebacker. I'm pretty sure you looked at him from
Yes,
USC, if I remember correctly.
Yes, sir. You are correct.
But, so I'm still going to pick the Vikings to cover. They're the better team, and don't take the Chargers' blowout victory last week against the Jaguars as anything other than just the Jaguars being bad.
Falcons at 49ers. The 49ers looking to get closer to home field advantage in the NFC. They're 10.5 point home favorites against the Falcons.
Got to keep up with the Seahawks. I mean, the Seahawks are right there behind them, but I will pick the 49ers to cover. Ever since they got Emmanuel Sanders, they've been playing so much better on offense. It's amazing what one good wide receiver would do for them. I'm going to pick them to cover against a really bad Atlanta team.
I will take the Niners as well. The Falcons have played much more competitive football over the last month and a half, but at the end of the day, I think the 49ers are the most complete team in the NFL, maybe aside from the Ravens, and they should be able to cruise in this one. We got an interesting late game between the Rams and Cowboys. The Rams seemingly have figured things out, while the Cowboys are really in need of some momentum here, because the Eagles, despite all their flaws, are still within a game now of the Cowboys, and they got to get things figured out because those two teams are meeting very soon.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I'm going to pick the Rams plus 1.5 in this game. I think that Dallas is just bad, and I don't think it's going to come alive here. I mean, the LA is playing for their playoff lives, while Dallas still has basically another week to go because they get to face Philly, I believe, next week, if I remember correctly. So I think that Rams have more to play for. They're the better team. I think that overall I got to pick the Rams plus 1.5. I think they're going to win.
I'm sorry, I didn't state the line. It is Cowboys minus 1.5. I'm also going to take the Rams plus the 1.5. It might have been a little too late, but the Rams finally started doing what helped their offense last year, and that's giving the ball to Todd Gurley, and that's made things flow a lot smoother for them. And then on the defensive side, the Rams have been playing much more complete football lately. The Cowboys are not a good football team, so give me the Rams over the Cowboys in this one. And the Sunday night game is a Steelers game, so we'll talk about that in a moment. Monday Night Football, the Colts at the New Orleans Saints. New Orleans is getting 9.5 points at home. This game is compelling right now, but it could be less compelling by the time the teams play because the Colts could be out of playoff contention. So perhaps for their sake, they're going to hope that they still have a chance of making the playoffs when this game rolls around. But all that being said, the Saints in the Dome, I like it. Give me the Saints to cover that 9.5-point spread.
I'm going to go against what I originally had. I'm going to pick the Colts plus 9.5. I think that the Colts are going to surprise them and run all over the Saints as the Saints try and figure things out with their new defensive line that they have to set up, minus Marcus Davenport and Sheldon Rankins. Those are some pretty big holes to fill in the defensive line. And I think that the Colts take advantage of that and can keep it within 9.5 because of that. I think the Colts are able to establish a pretty solid run game against them. So Colts plus 9.5.
Let's talk about some Steelers news right now, Austin. There's one big-time article that came out talking about in the Tampa Bay Times. XFL Commissioner Oliver Luck stated that the Steelers had attempted to sign now Dallas Renegades quarterback Landry Jones after Ben Roethlisberger was lost for the season with an elbow injury in September. But because Jones had already signed an XFL contract, he would not be allowed to sign with an NFL team. So that meant that the Steelers tried to get him so that he could be behind Mason Rudolph when Roethlisberger was moved to IR. And this would have been after Josh Dobbs got traded as well. But it's just interesting to think about what could have happened if Landry Jones ended up being the backup to Rudolph and not Devlin Hodges. And it was also stated that the Steelers attempted to sign quarterback Philip Walker of the Houston Roughnecks in Week 5, but were also unable to for the same reasons they couldn't sign Jones, which makes me wonder why they even tried if they already knew what the...
I started to laugh. I knew the first part. I saw the Landry Jones thing. I didn't see the Philip Walker thing. They're like, well, what about that one? It's like going up to the XFL. Hey, is that for sale? And they're like, nothing's for sale. But what about that? They're just like, no, still nothing's for sale. What about that? And they're like, please go away. That's really funny to me.
Yeah, I don't know what that was all about.
They tried again.
But what do you think about what it would have been like with Landry Jones instead of maybe Devlin Hodges but backing up Rudolph?
Crazy. I don't know. It's hard to say. I almost think that Landry Jones would Mason Rudolph have come in? Or would they have trusted more Landry Jones? I know Mason Rudolph came in as the number 2 quarterback, but I feel like they would have still been scared and they would have went to what they knew with Landry Jones if he was there. I don't know. It's really tough to say what would have happened with him there instead of Devlin Hodges. Interesting stuff.
See, because Jones wasn't on the team last year, I think that they'd give the nod to Rudolph, but I think it's certainly possible that Hodges wouldn't have seen the field. He would have been on the roster because eventually the Steelers did go back to the 3 quarterbacks and Hodges would have been the next guy. It just means Paxton Lynch wouldn't have had a job.
Yeah, I mean, he really shouldn't have a job, but that's besides the point.
One former Pittsburgh Steeler was recognized by the rest of the NFL. He was voted to the NFL's all-time 100th anniversary team, and that is, of course, center Mike Webster, one of the best to ever do it, a 4-time Super Bowl champion and the longest tenured Steeler of all time, I believe. Certainly when he retired. He played from 1974 to 1988, and I believe he is the team record holder for games played and games started, but I think Ben Roethlisberger is creeping up on that record.
Yeah, probably, since he's played for so long, but yeah, it's a shame. Dermontti Dawson didn't make it. He was one of the ones that was eligible to be on there, but I mean, they're only given 4 centers, so only Mike Webster made it. But Webster was definitely deserving.
Absolutely, he was. Let's move to NFL news now. Austin, you had mentioned that Saints defensive end Marcus Davenport was placed on IR earlier in the week, and the very next day, linemate Sheldon Rankins was also placed on injured reserve. So you look at that, and the Saints take a couple of blows on the defensive line where that team is at its best on the defensive side.
Yeah, they're going to be struggling. It's definitely, I know they like their guy Tuttle. I don't know if you've talked to Jesse anytime recently. I know that Tuttle came in and played recently for them and played well, and so they have a little bit of glimmer of hope there. I don't know what they're going to do about Bolfloss, though. I don't know if they have a second guy that they really like. I know that they have a guy called Onyemata, but I don't know. I've seen him do good things. I don't know if he's going to be the guy. I just know that they like Tuttle over there.
Lamar Jackson broke Michael Vick's 13-year-old rushing record for most rushing yards in a single season by a quarterback with I forget the exact number, but he's now over 1,000 yards rushing, and it's been a banner year for what's looking like to be the MVP of the league.
To be an MVP season, I mean, he just threw his it's a really hard sentence, 5 touchdown game this year. So it's pretty much locked for him, I think. I don't think anyone's going to overtake him.
There were a couple big names released Friday afternoon from their respective teams. You want to touch on those?
Yeah, the Giants released cornerback Janoris Jenkins after fighting with a fan on Twitter a couple of days ago. He refused to admit he was wrong after getting cut. He tweeted, "It was the greatest news I've gotten." Giants tried shopping him at the deadline last year and this year, and you may remember the Steelers had some interest at last year's deadline, but don't expect any interest this year. And with his heavy price tag, expected to clear waivers as well. I mean, he's just not a good locker room guy. It doesn't make sense for the Steelers to go get a guy like that, especially with how much he would cost. Like I said, I don't think he's going to clear waivers. And then the other big one, the 37-year-old Terrell Suggs has been released from the Arizona Cardinals on mutual terms. Suggs' playing time has decreased since the beginning of the season, and with only $353,000 left on his contract for this year, I think a team will take a flyer on the pass rusher with 5.5 sacks and 4 forced fumbles this year. Ravens are last in the waiver order, but it feels like a reunion waiting to happen. I feel like he's going to go back to the Ravens and try and get a ring. I think that makes sense. I mean, he doesn't have a choice if another team claims him, but he doesn't make sense to be taken by one of the really bad teams because he's so much older. If he's claimed, he's going to go to one of the top 10 teams as a guy that could come in on rotational piece. Do you have anything to say about these two guys?
The Cardinals releasing him makes sense from their point of view, but I really have to question why he signed there in the first place.
It's his home. He wanted to play for home in his last year.
For 10 games?
So?
I don't know. I don't know. In hindsight, I think it's a little... I don't know. I just think it's a little bizarre. It'd be one thing if he finished the season or, they released him just because they didn't think he was playing well, but, I mean, there's still something in the tank, you know?
Yeah, he's still definitely doing things. I mean, he has 5.5 sacks. It's not the worst at all.
He's definitely still producing at least a decent amount. Wide receiver Devontae Parker of the Miami Dolphins has just signed a 4-year, $40 million extension with $21.5 million guaranteed. I think that was well earned based off of his play just this year anyways. He's finally come into his own, and with Ryan Fitzpatrick at quarterback, he has been deadly.
Yeah, that's a pretty solid deal for both sides, really. I mean, $10 million a year for a wide receiver isn't top dollar. That's almost half of what Michael Thomas is making. So honestly, a pretty good deal for the Dolphins here who are about to start rebuilding.
One last thing, 10 former NFL players have been charged with defrauding the NFL's health program of millions of dollars. The former players included Clinton Portis, Robert McCune, John Eubanks, Tamarick Vanover, Carlos Rogers, Sanders Brown, James Butler, Fred Bennett, Corral Buckhalter, and Ektrick Pruitt. Joe Horn was also mentioned, but not among those players. So I don't know if you looked into that at all, but any thoughts on it?
No, I don't really have much thoughts. I haven't really looked into it. I saw it happen. I was just I don't even really know what's going to move on.
Indeed. I'm sure we'll see more about it in the coming weeks and months. Let's move into X Factors and bold predictions and final score predictions. Austin, you have the trivia question today, so whenever you're ready, lay it on me.
Sure. In what year did the Bills last win in Pittsburgh?
In Pittsburgh?
In Pittsburgh.
1999.
Oh, but I'll give you another hint. It was before I was born.
All right, 1993 then.
It was 1993. Yep.
Okay. I was gonna say I'm not gonna get a second. I know you gave me a second chance, but you won the draft, so.
Yeah, the Steelers lost to the Bills 24-3 in the divisional round. The 1993 it was played on the 9th, if I remember correctly. So I would have taken the 1992 season as an answer as well. But yeah, so What I am going to do is I like to defer, so I'm going to defer and take the 2 back-to-back.
Okay, this game is going to be all about defense, as we know, and creating turnovers. So my X factor is going to be, starting on defense, Minkah Fitzpatrick. He's been very impactful all season, as we know, but he hasn't had an interception in a handful of weeks. I think this is a week where him making a few plays could go a long way for the Steelers. And, with the Steelers generating pressure up front, Josh Allen has been better at taking care of the football lately, but Minkah Fitzpatrick has been making plays all over the field. So give me Minkah Fitzpatrick as my defensive X factor. Now, Austin, it's your turn. Give me both your offensive and defensive guy.
So I'm going to start with defense as well. I'm going to pick T.J. Watt. I think T.J. Watt's got the best matchup in this game going against Cody Ford. I think that he could be the real difference maker the Steelers need. And he has been. I think he's going to continue and have 3 sacks in this game, so that's going to be my bold prediction. And then on offense, I'm going to go kind of weird. I'm going to pick Deion Kane. I don't think that Tre'davious White should be matched up on Deion Kane almost ever in the Bills' best interest to do that. And so I think that he could be a real difference maker. I was between him and Fournette, if I was being honest. But I have a good feeling about Kane, and what I'm going to say is he's going to have a 50-plus yard catch in this game. That's going to be my bold prediction for him. What is your last offensive X factor?
I'm going to go with James Washington. He's been the Steelers' best offensive player the last month and a half now, and it's going to be up to him for the Steelers to make some big plays in this game. With Juju Smith-Schuster out again and a tough cornerback matchup in Tre'davious White at least part of the time, we would think it's going to be a tough day for Washington, but if he doesn't produce, it's going to be hard to see the Steelers putting up any sort of offensive points. So give me James Washington as the Steelers' offensive X factor because the Steelers will not be able to win without it. All right, let's move on to bold predictions, Austin. Give me 2.
I already gave my bold prediction. I'm sorry.
You did.
I
I'm
a little
sorry.
bit too early. 50-yard catch and 3 sacks.
Okay, my bad. I forgot you did say that. For me, I'm going to go with more generalized ones. I'm going to go with the Steelers giving up less than 250 yards of offense in the game. And then as far as my second bold prediction, I'm going to go with no offensive touchdowns in the game.
Oh, okay. That's pretty good. It's pretty good.
So no offensive touchdowns in the game. And alrighty, so Bills and Steelers at Sunday night. Should be a good one. Steelers are 2.5-point favorites. Austin, where are you leaning in this one?
Really, it feels like the Steelers should lose. It feels like almost everything's not in their favor. Not having Juju, not having fans, going to be down. Probably James Conner. Or James Conner might not play, and if he does play, he's definitely not going to be playing 100%. I think that it feels like most things are going to be going against the Steelers, but what they do have is the color rush uniforms, and the power of the color rush uniforms will lead them to victory. And I'm going to pick 12-7 Steelers in a very low-scoring affair because both defenses are pretty good. I think that Steelers edge them out just barely with 4 field goals. What do you got?
I'm going to have the Bills winning this one 13-9. Like you said, this has the makings of a very low-scoring game. It's going to be up to turnovers and who can make the more explosive plays. And I trust Josh Allen a little more than I trust Duck Hodges right now. I just think the Bills are the better team right now. The Steelers have played better as of late, but if the Steelers can't establish a ground game, I don't see how they score a touchdown. And if they can't score a touchdown, I don't know if they'll be able to win the game. So, I don't know. That's just the way I see it. So I think the Steelers can put up 3 field goals, but if they don't get turnovers, they're not going to win the game. So they're going to have to come up with, like we said, those magic numbers of like 17, 4-5 and 2 regarding points against, sacks, and turnovers. So that's what it comes down to. It should be a good game, though. Heinz Field will be rocking, and I do have a good feeling about that, but I am going to take the Bills to cover the 2.5-point spread in this one.
I think that's fair. Just also something to say, the Bills are not used to being in this position. The last time they played Sunday Night Football was 2007. And that's all. I'm basing my prediction on voodoo because I feel like the Bills should win as well.
The Bills in that game lost to the Patriots 56-10. by the way.
Wait, what?
The Bills lost to the Patriots, I meant to say, 56-10 in that game.
Which game? I'm confused.
That Sunday night game in 2007.
I was so confused. Okay, now I understand. Yep. Damn, dude.
Any closing thoughts before we wrap this one up? Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen listening, thank you so much, as always, for listening to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. If you have any questions about the show, please feel free to email us at strongerthansteelpodcast@gmail.com. Check out our website, where you can find our episodes posted on SoundCloud and YouTube. Our website is strongerthansteelnfl.blogspot.com. Austin, thank you so much for joining me today, and everyone enjoy the game on Sunday night, and hopefully we're talking about the Steelers as the number 5 seed and in great position to make the playoffs without Ben Roethlisberger, and how crazy would that be? But of course, there's a game to be played on Sunday. Let's get through that, and hopefully it's a good one. Have a good night, everybody. Austin, thanks again for joining me, and thank you as always for listening to the Stronger Than Steel podcast.
Good night.
You have been listening to Stronger Than Steel podcast. Thank you for joining us today, and don't forget to check out our website listed in the description below.